Here are some things that Disneyland doesn't want you to know. For a long time, there's been a rumor that some of the bones on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride are from real human skeletons. In 2014, a rider asked an employee about the rumor as he was getting off the ride, and she said the skeleton sitting above the bed in the treasure room contains a real human skull. Underneath Disneyland, there's a massive system of underground tunnels. One of the purposes of the tunnels is to keep the magic alive by hiding the characters when they're not supposed to be seen. Emergency vehicles also use the tunnels to get to their patient while trying to be unseen by the public so they don't kill the vibe. Disneyland strategically releases a vanilla scent through smellitizers which look like speakers. They do this because the scent is proven to calm people down, and it also makes them hungry, so they spend more money on food. At the main entrance, they use the smell of popcorn. And at Pirates of the Caribbean, they release a scent of wet wood and sea salt. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In Poland, this bike path was made using thousands of tiny luminophores, which is a material that produces low levels of light for 10 hours, then recharges itself from the sun. The bike path doesn't require electricity and provides safety for people biking at night. 20 different cities in France have already implemented this. It allows you to charge your phone using pedal power. The goal of the company is to promote an active lifestyle while making sure your phone doesn't die. People who use the bike also get free Wi-Fi. The Cal Maritime Police Department in California has placed a safe zone outside which is watched by a camera 24/7. They made this zone so you don't have to worry about getting hurt or robbed when purchasing things from people in your city. This man was buried alive for 7 days, and you won't believe what happened to him. On April 5th, 1999, professional magician and stuntman David Blaine performed his first ever public endurance stunt. He buried himself 6 feet underground in a plexiglass coffin for 7 days and nights. He had a 3-ton water-filled tank put on top of his coffin so people could look into the coffin and see him from up on the ground. Over the course of the 7 days, an estimated 75,000 people visited the site, even including former President Donald Trump. Oxygen and water were fed into the coffin, and when he needed to pee, it was removed via catheter. And for the full 7 days of the stunt, he didn't eat anything. On the 7th day, hundreds of onlookers and news teams were stationed at the site for the coffin opening. David then emerged from the coffin, and this is what he told the crowd.
I saw something truly incredible. People together smiling, and that made all of this worth it.
The strangest last meal requests on death row. In 1963, Victor Harry Fager was sentenced to death for a kidnap and murder. For his final meal, he requested a single olive with the seed left in it. After his execution, the seed was found in his pocket. They believed he wanted to be buried with it so a tree would sprout on top of him. Gerald Lee Mitchell requested an assorted bag of Jolly Ranchers, and he ate every single one. In 1990, James Edward Smith requested a lump of soil, but since dirt isn't on the list of permitted food, he was served a cup of yogurt instead. Thomas Grasso was convicted of robbery and murder. He requested a bunch of things, like a cheeseburger from Burger King, 2 strawberry milkshakes, but the thing he wanted the most was SpaghettiOs, which he didn't receive. Instead, he got spaghetti, which was supposedly too warm. His last words before dying were, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs, I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." Terrible crimes that were solved by pure coincidence. On April 28, 1997, Zephany Nurse was born, and she was placed in a nearby crib while her mother Celeste slept, but when Celeste awoke, her daughter was missing. Police searched the hospital, but nothing of note was found. In fact, no progress was made in the case for nearly 2 decades. However, when Celeste's next oldest daughter Cassidy started classes at a new school in 2014, she met Mache Solomon. The girls quickly struck up a close friendship, and many people commented on their resemblance to one another. So much so that when Cassidy introduced Mache to her mom Celeste, she instantly contacted the police. When Mache's alleged parents couldn't provide proof of her birth, a DNA test was conducted, and it was confirmed that Mache was actually Zephany Nurse, Celeste's missing daughter. The kidnapper LaVonna Solomon was later convicted in the abduction case and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Weird everyday items that are banned in prison. Chewing gum is banned because prisoners can use it to make impressions of keys and to jam door locks so their cell doors don't close all the way. Spiral-bound notebooks are banned because not only can prisoners make weapons out of the metal rings, but they could also use them to pick a lock. Some prisons in the UK have banned prisoners from watching R-rated movies. They don't want them watching violent movies or films that depict how babies are made. Bizarre mysteries and crimes that were solved by using Google Earth, Part 2. In 2006, a small plane carrying 2 passengers went missing over the skies of Arizona. But the 2 passengers didn't follow a flight plan, so no one knew what their route was, which made finding the crash site very difficult. But 3 years later, some cyber sleuths used Google Earth to find out the direction the plane was headed and eventually found the location of the lost plane crash. When David and his family weren't home, thieves stole their new camping trailer, which was sitting in their driveway. There were no suspects in the case until a year later when David's 11-year-old son looked up their house on Google Earth. It had captured the criminal on their driveway moments before the crime took place. The police would use this photo to find and arrest the suspect. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, Part 10. If you ever get a bug bite, all you have to do is put this little suction device over it and pop it out. This will remove the insect venom and saliva and stop it from itching. Next, if you've ever wanted to professionally clean your ears, then you need this device. It has a built-in HD camera that lets you see all the earwax on your phone so you don't miss a spot. Next, you can get infinite free water with the Fontis self-filling water bottle that uses solar energy to pull the moisture contained in the air. By doing this, it can produce 17 ounces of drinking water an hour all by itself. Genius people who beat the system, Part 8. This super nice guy came out of nowhere and started paying for a TikToker's parking meter using a quarter taped to a stick. That's pure genius. This TikToker's dad created a whole fleet of lawnmowers so he could work smarter and not harder, and honestly, I think he's onto something. YouTuber Troy Kine proved to the world that you can get in anywhere as long as you have a ladder. Just by using a ladder, him and his friend were able to get into a train station, a movie theater, a boat cruise, a work site, and many more places. Reeling in fish from 200 feet down can really be tiring on your wrists, but not for this guy. Using a modified drill attachment, he was easily able to catch 2 fish without doing any of the work. Secret messages hidden in popular logos, Part 4. Many people think that the famous web browser Firefox has a fox on its logo that circles the entire planet. But it isn't actually a fox. The word Firefox is the English translation of the Chinese name for a red panda. So Firefox is no fox at all, it's actually an adorable red panda. The National Geographic logo is a simple yellow rectangle, but it actually symbolizes a door that's open to the world of knowledge about nature, science, and culture. And the color yellow was chosen to represent the sun. The Airbnb logo contains 3 different parts: the head of a person that represents a user of their website, the sign for a location on a map to show where the house or apartment is, a heart which represents love, and finally all of these symbols combine to make the letter A for Airbnb. This little girl suddenly passed away, but what her mom finds in a secret letter will make you cry. 12-year-old Taylor was just like any other girl her age. One day she was doing homework when suddenly she felt a strong pain in her chest. She then collapsed to the floor and her mom called 911. Taylor was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The doctors discovered she had severe pneumonia and she slipped into a coma. And a few days later, she sadly passed away. Her mother was devastated, but as she went to go clean Taylor's room, she found a secret letter that Taylor had written. The letter was actually a message to herself that she was supposed to open in 2023. She talks about her hopes, dreams, and her relationship with God. Her mother was so inspired by this that she actually wrote a book on it. This man couldn't swim but was still invited to compete in the Olympics, and what happened will shock you. Back in 1999, Eric Mosumbani from Equatorial Guinea tried to learn how to swim. But since most people in his country don't swim, there wasn't any pools he could use, so he would actually practice in lakes and oceans. After 8 months, he could still barely keep himself afloat, but that's when he was invited to the 2000 Olympics off of a wildcard draw. Eric was scared as he had never left this country before or even seen an Olympic 50-meter pool. But Eric still decided to go and ended up recording the slowest time in Olympic history at 1 minute and 52 seconds. But unbelievably, the other 2 swimmers he was competing against made false starts, so he won. His victory went viral online and he was given the nickname Eric the Eel. Here's what would happen if you were tickled for 24 hours straight. 10 minutes in, you would already feel extremely unpleasant, and at this point, you would already want to stop. After 1 hour of non-stop giggles, your core would be extremely sore. It would be the best workout of your life and the nastiest one. Okay, you've been tickled for 10 hours now. It's pure torture. As a matter of fact, tickling has been used in sinister ways in the past. During the Han Dynasty in the 3rd century BCE, the Chinese used it as torture. Anyways, now you are in the last stretch and it will not be pleasant. The constant laughter you've had for 15 hours could lead you to pass out. It could cause you both mental and physical harm. At the 24-hour mark, you'd have lost control of your body and you wouldn't be able to regulate your breathing and you'd be very stressed. You could have asphyxia, a brain aneurysm, or a heart attack, so you could actually be tickled to death. In August of this year, ABC News actually aired a satanic ritual on television. It is seriously going to blow your mind that this really happened. Obviously, tons of viewers were upset by this, and many people think that this was done on purpose. Here's the clip.
An arrest in Brisbane last year.
Wait for it.
Yup, they literally aired a Satanist group during a ritual. But what's also super weird is how they just go back to normal afterwards. Take a look.
Recent outages.
Now the worst part about all of this is that this was not a live broadcast, it was pre-filmed, which means that someone edited this short segment into it purposefully. Here are some of the most shocking deathbed confessions ever that'll send shivers down your spine. In 1987, a woman named Alice Mock was on her deathbed when she confessed something to her neighbor that was truly messed up. Back in 1975, Alice accused a black man named Wayman Camille Jr. of breaking into her apartment, robbing her, and raping her. After Alice told this to police, Camille was arrested and sentenced to 15 years in prison even though there was no evidence against him. But when Alice was on her deathbed, she admitted that she had actually invited Camille into her apartment and actually robbed him when he was sleeping. And she only made up this lie because she feared she would get evicted if her landlord learned she had invited a black man into her apartment. And she also didn't want Camille to know that she had taken money from him. After Alice's confession, Camille was finally released after being wrongfully imprisoned for 12 years. Here are some crazy coincidences that you won't believe actually happened. Shortly before their wedding, Nick and Amy decided to go through Nick's baby photos. In this picture of him playing at the beach during a vacation, Amy noticed herself in the background 11 years before they met. Violet Giuseppe was a ship nurse on the three sister ships, the Titanic, Britannic, and Olympic. She was on board the Olympic when it collided with a warship and almost sank, when the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank, and when the Britannic hit an underwater mine and also sank. She survived all three. The last person who died constructing the Hoover Dam was the son of the first person who died constructing the Hoover Dam. But the creepiest part is they both died on December 20th in different years. Here are the weirdest and most unbelievable creatures to ever wash up on the beach. First, residents of the Philippines were shocked and terrified when this hairy sea monster washed ashore. But when scientists observed the gigantic rotting sea creature, they said that it was probably the remains of a whale. And the hair-like strands covering it were most likely decamping muscle fibers, which is absolutely disgusting. Next, back in 2017 off the coast of South Africa, 3 great white sharks washed ashore but with something very strange missing. All 3 sharks were missing their livers, and scientists were able to examine them and they uncovered the cause of death. The ones that did it were actually killer whales, which are actually known to attack sharks and rip out and eat their organs. Next, a deep-sea anglerfish washed ashore in California in May of this year. This is an extremely rare find since these fish usually lurk in dark water around 3,000 feet below the surface. So how and why did it end up on the shores of a beach? I already made a video talking about that unexplained diving footage, but after I posted it, I found a new clip that explains everything. In the new video that I found, you can see this scary looking lady reach out and grab the camera. I quickly realized that it looks very similar to the supernatural horror movie The Deep House, which is about divers exploring a submerged haunted house. Here are some side-by-side screenshots from the unexplained footage and the Deep House trailer. So the footage isn't real, it's just clips people took from the Deep House movie that they posted online without any context. The full film just came out and is available now to buy or rent, so if you liked those clips, you should check out the full movie. This unexplained diving footage has recently gone viral on Reddit and is freaking everyone out. The footage shows divers finding an old creepy underwater structure with ancient writing on it. But when they go inside and they see the strange things on the shelves, the footage abruptly ends. No one seems to know where the footage came from, and everyone is arguing on if it's even real or not. The Dumbest Lottery Winners Part 2. After winning $31 million, Billy Bob Harrell quit his job, gave millions of dollars to his church and to charities, and bought multiple cars and homes for his friends and family. But Billy was just too nice though. Whenever anyone asked him for any amount of money, he would just give it to them, even to strangers. And all this spending plus a divorce left him basically broke, and he tragically committed suicide just 2 years after winning the lottery. Americo Lopez and his co-workers had been taking part in a lottery pool since 2007, and in 2009 Lopez discovered he had the winning ticket in his hand. But rather than share the $38.5 million with his colleagues like he was supposed to, he decided to claim the ticket and keep all the money to himself. All of Lopez's co-workers sued him and took him to court, and Lopez was forced to pay each of them $2 million. This McDonald's worker paid for a family's meal after a mom forgot her wallet, and how she repays him will shock you. Brittany Reed was leaving football practice with her 3 children when her youngest son began crying because he was hungry. So Brittany decided to go to McDonald's to get everyone food. After she ordered the food and pulled up to the drive-thru window to pay, all 3 kids were crying and she realized she left her wallet at home. She looked at the McDonald's employee with tears in her eyes from being stressed and annoyed. And she then told the employee that she would have to cancel her order. The employee was 16-year-old Wyatt Jones. And without hesitation, Wyatt pulled out his own card and paid for all of the family's food. Brittany later found out that Wyatt was saving up to buy his own car. So she set up a GoFundMe account for him to repay him for what he did. And it ended up raising over $50,000. And McDonald's also gave him a reward for what he did. Crazy coincidences you won't believe actually happened, Part 5. In 2018 in Camptown, Pennsylvania, a body was found wrapped in a black tarp inside a creek by the police. During the police investigation, some reporters were on the scene talking about what had happened. That's when one journalist came across Matthew Haverly, who lived with his mom right next to the creek where the body was found. While being interviewed, he said this.
It's sad to say that that's someone's either daughter, mother, whatever, both.
Remember that quote, because hours later cops realized that the body in the creek was Matthew's mom. This makes his comments about the body being someone's mother very suspicious. Cops raided his property and found the same black tarp that his mom was wrapped in his shed. And he was arrested and sentenced to 3.5 to 14 years in prison for the murder. Creepiest things caught on Google Maps. In this TikTok, serial killer Juan Carlos Hernandez was caught transporting dead bodies. Between 2012 and 2018, Jose and his wife Patricia sexually assaulted, dismembered, and ate up to 20 young women. They would then feed the hearts of their victims to their dogs and dump the body bags in this roadside location that can be seen on Google Maps. They even sold the baby of one of their victims into human trafficking. Thankfully, they were both arrested and each sentenced to 327 years in prison. Genius people who beat the system, Part 11. Lucky wanted to diss her bad teachers, so in her senior quote she put, "To all the teachers that never taught me a thing," and put a timestamp from Stranger Things that says this.
Son of a bitch, you're really no help at all, you know that?
A guy was playing video games when his girlfriend asked him to watch the cake that she was baking as she didn't want it to burn. But he didn't want to just sit there and watch the cake, so he FaceTimed the cake so he could continue playing video games upstairs. Nikola Lulic was a third-class passenger aboard the Titanic. But when disaster struck, third-class passengers were a low priority, so Nikola found a sailor's cap and used it as a disguise to secure a spot on a lifeboat. And he went on to live another 50 years. Lost inventions that could have changed the world, Part 4. In the late 1990s, inventor Jan Sloat created the Sloat digital coding system. He claimed it could compress an entire multi-gigabyte movie down to a file size of 8 kilobytes. This would have revolutionized the way we store and share data. Sloat demonstrated this to executives from Philips by playing 16 movies simultaneously from a single 64 kilobyte chip. And the Philips execs told Sloat that he was about to be, quote, the richest man on earth. However, 2 days before the source code was going to be handed over, Slout mysteriously died in his garden of a heart attack on September 11th, 1999, and his decoding software was never recovered. People who got caught in 4K Part 2. This movie theater was caught using Amazon Prime Video to play movies, but the funniest part is that it gave them an error message saying too many videos were playing at once on their account. A customer sent a small business this email saying that she ordered the shooting star ring but instead only got an empty box. But the photo she attached to the email showing the empty packaging shows her wearing this ring, which is literally the ring that she bought. Someone recorded an Amazon truck early in the morning and captured the delivery driver delivering more than just packages. Let's just hope that nothing got on the packages, if you know what I mean. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 12. The Defender is the all-in-one self-defense tool. If you're ever attacked, just take a picture. The picture as well as your location is instantly sent to the authorities. Also, after taking the picture, it sprays pepper spray and sets off its mighty speaker which attracts attention, and it's small enough to always have on you. The meld knob and clip helps you cook the perfect meal every time by automatically turning the heat up or down to keep the food at the perfect temperature. Also, the Meld app has hundreds of recipes, and when you select one, the app connects to the knob and clip and cooks the meal for you. The quad ski is the world's first quad and jet ski in one. It's capable of going 45 miles per hour on both land and water and could potentially save lives. Since it converts from quad to jet ski in only 4 seconds, lifeguards could use it to quickly rescue someone who could have drowned or been pulled to sea.
Genius people who beat the system, part 5. A girl's phone was about to die, so she yelled to her mom who was upstairs to bring her down a charger. But her mom didn't want to get up, so she simply tied the charger around the dog who was upstairs with her and told her daughter to call him down. This Twitter user and her partner faked a proposal so they could get a free dessert at a restaurant, and it completely worked. Kimberly Oakley left a note on her son Jason's recently washed shirt asking, "Can you hang this out please?" But the note didn't specify what this referred to, so he took her words seriously and literally hung out the note and sent her this picture. Kayla Smith spotted her stolen bike for sale online. She called the police, but they told her they couldn't handle her case that day. So she called the thief and said she was interested in buying the bike. They met at McDonald's and she immediately knew it was hers, so she asked to try it out and he agreed and she never came back. Genius people who beat the system, part 4. This student was only allowed to have a 1-page cheat sheet, so they wrote a whole page of notes in blue pen and another page in red pen. They then brought 3D glasses to class, so when they look through the blue side they can see the red pen, and when they look through the red side they can see the blue pen. A couple's landlord said that they couldn't paint the walls in their apartment, so they got hundreds of paint strips and covered the walls with them. A teacher wouldn't allow students to eat in class, so a kid filled his empty lip balm with cheese so he could sneak it in. This kid was asked to name the country that owns Greenland. Hint, it's not Greenland. So he answered not Greenland and the teacher actually marked it right. This kid's mom told him that food wasn't allowed in the living room and his tablet wasn't allowed in the kitchen, so it's safe to say that he beat the system. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 5. First, police forces in Dubai have officially adopted real hover bikes that have 4 propellers and can fly up to 40 miles per hour. It helps the police get around congested cities easier and they're able to get to people in need quicker than ever before. Next, Abu Dhabi International Airport has sleeping pods that are soundproof so you can take a nap in privacy while waiting for your flight. It also has power sockets, Wi-Fi, and secure luggage storage and only costs $12 an hour to use it. Next, the Rover Speed is a smart suitcase that uses cameras, radar, and AI to follow you so you don't have to hold the handle. It matches your walk speed, avoids obstacles, and you can even charge your other devices off of it. Next, many different stores such as Sephora have implemented 2 different sets of shopping baskets. One is for those that need help shopping and another is for those who want to be left alone. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 31. First, scientists have discovered that the Earth has a second moon, but it won't stay around forever. The second moon is actually a fragment of our regular moon that was created by a meteor collision. The second moon will orbit Earth for 300 years before it breaks its orbit and journeys out into space. Next, Russia just shot down their own satellite, which has put the lives of the astronauts aboard the ISS at risk. The explosion of the satellite caused at least 1,500 pieces of debris to create a dangerous debris cloud. And the ISS passes through this cloud every 90 minutes, and if any of this debris were to hit the station, it could leave it uninhabitable. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 30. First, a company named Xpeng recently revealed their completely electric flying car that they will start producing in 2024. It will have autopilot and the flying mode can carry 2 passengers at 80 miles per hour for 35 minutes. It will also have a parachute system, thunderstorm protection, and it will only cost $157,000. Next, an asteroid the size of the Eiffel Tower that's traveling 15,000 miles per hour will hurtle right by Earth in December. NASA has deemed it as potentially hazardous because it crosses Earth's orbit. And what's even crazier is that it will pass by Earth again in 2060. Next, the internet is going crazy over this 10-year-old girl because she has a higher IQ than Albert Einstein. She completed high school at 8 years old and is now earning 2 engineering degrees at the same time. She is working on becoming an astronaut and wants to colonize Mars. This girl was found frozen in ice after 6 hours, but what happened next shocked everyone and left doctors speechless. Jean Hillard was driving home during a blizzard in Minnesota when her car skidded into a ditch. Her friend lived nearby, so she started walking. It was negative 30 degrees outside and the wind was blowing into her face. She reached her friend's driveway but just couldn't go any further, and just 15 feet from his door she collapsed on the ground. She was in the snow for 6 hours and turned into a human icicle. Her friend came out and saw her like this, frozen and ghost-like. At the hospital, she was so frozen doctors couldn't even open her mouth to put a thermometer. Her skin was so hard that a needle broke when they tried to put it in her. The doctors then decided to put warm packs of water around her body. And in just 6 hours with no amputations and no brain damage, she was conscious and speaking with her family. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 28. First, NASA is launching a mission to study an asteroid that is worth more than $10,000 quadrillion. It contains so much precious metal that everyone on Earth would be a billionaire if its precious cargo was divided among mankind. NASA is set to launch in August 2022, and the spacecraft would arrive at the asteroid 4 years later in early 2026. Next, NASA is also looking to pay volunteers to spend a year living in a 3D printed Martian habitat. The fake Martian surface is located in Texas, and the paid volunteers will take place in a simulated Martian exploration mission complete with spacewalks. They will also have limited contact with their families and friends back home. Simulations on Earth will help NASA prepare for when they actually have people living on Mars.
The fucking world is $281 trillion in debt. To who? Who do we owe? Jupiter?
She is correct. The world has almost 8 times more debt than it has money. Global debt reached $281 trillion in 2021, but there's only around $37 trillion in circulation. So how can we owe more money than there is money in existence? If I lend you $10, then you're $10 in debt and you have $10 in cash. If you lend that same $10 to a friend, you created $20 of debt, but there's still only $10 available. Global debt is all the money owed by all the people, businesses, and governments in the world. That means almost 90% of the money out there isn't real. It's fake money that's made through all of this debt. Here are some famous places that have secret rooms that you didn't know about. And if you ever wanted to visit France, the last one is pretty amazing. First up, we have Mount Rushmore. Right behind Abraham Lincoln's head is a secret room. Right now, everything inside is in a titanium vault, but it contains the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the biography of the architect. Next up, we all know about the wonderful Disney Castle, but did you know that there's a luxury suite inside? The thing is, no matter how much you want to pay, you can't get in here unless you win the Disney lottery that happens once a year. And lastly, the architect of the Eiffel Tower built himself a secret room all the way at the top. Only he could access it, and he would have his friend Thomas Edison over all the time. Also, below the Eiffel Tower were some other secret rooms that weren't so good because the Germans would use it during World War II to torture prisoners. Here are some times when actors almost died on set, part 2. In Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, the actor Viggo Mortensen was supposed to float down the river acting as if he was dead. But the speed of the current plus the weight of the costume caused real danger. When he reached this rock, the current pulled him underwater and he nearly stayed there until he eventually kicked off the wall and got back to the surface. In Back to the Future 3, Marty McFly is captured by bandits and hung with a noose until he's quickly rescued. The reason McFly's squirming looks so genuine is because the actor was really being hung. He even passed out for half a minute until the director noticed and saved him. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 2. Some elevators in Asia have giant buttons on the floor that you can kick to mark what floor you're going to. This was designed to help people who are carrying things and can't press the buttons with their hands. There's a mall that lets you leave your dog in a safe spot while you shop. The spot has a security system so that only you could open them, as well as lighting and air conditioning. In the United States, there's a shoe store that lets you test the shoes on different surfaces.
The test box includes gravel, asphalt, and even materials like Lego. Finally, there's restaurants that give you a controller with 3 buttons. The first button lets the waiters know when you're ready to order. The second is to let them know when you're ready to pay. And the third one is to cancel your order. The idea is to avoid the waiters from constantly asking you if you're ready to order. Photos you're not allowed to see. You're not allowed to go into Area 51, but a pilot named Gabriel Ziefman broke those rules and flew over top. He took this photo in 2020 and it's the best one we have. Cameras have always been banned in the Supreme Court, but in 1932, Eric Sullivan snuck in a camera. He pretended to have a broken arm and hid his camera inside of the cast. 5 years later, there was another photo taken. A lady cut a hole in her purse and put a small camera in it. Since 1878, the most powerful people in the world meet at this forest in California where they do lots of ceremonies and rituals. This includes presidents, billionaires, and business people. But a photographer named Gabriel Mulan snuck in and took photos of them, where this one shows them performing a ritual. Here are the weirdest things to ever wash up on the beach, part 3. In 2016, thousands of snowballs were found on a beach in Siberia. It's the first time something like this has ever happened and probably the last. If you've ever thought about sending a message in a bottle, somebody already did 101 years ago. A German fisherman found a message in a bottle and actually managed to get it to the daughter of the sender. Although it looks like something out of a movie, a robotic hand was found on a beach near New York, and no one really knows where it came from. And if that one wasn't strange enough, a dinosaur bone was found on a beach in Washington. Scientists analyzed it and said that it could be from a T-Rex or a Velociraptor, and it's estimated to be around 80 million years old. And finally, the creepiest one of all, between 2007 and 2008, multiple feet were found still in shoes on the beaches in Canada. In total, 7 feet were found, and there's still no explanation. Here's what would happen if Queen Elizabeth died right now. First, Prince Charles would become king and his wife would become queen. Next, the news of Queen Elizabeth's death would become public, and within minutes it would be trending all around the world. After that, the royal family website would be turned to black, and every news reporter would be forced to wear black. Next, there would be 12 days of mourning in the UK. And her funeral would take place 9 days after her death, becoming a national holiday. After that, Queen Elizabeth will be buried in a vault in Windsor Castle. And lastly, all the money in the UK would change, replacing Queen Elizabeth's head with Charles. Here are some crazy coincidences you won't believe actually happened, part 2. On Christmas Eve in 1994, 2 cars collided on an icy road near Norfolk, England. The 2 drivers that crashed were actually twin sisters Lorraine and Lavinia, who were delivering Christmas presents to each other. But the craziest part of all is they were unaware of each other's separate journeys, and their last name is literally Christmas. 2 twins were separated at birth and adopted by different families, yet they somehow lived identical lives. Both were renamed James, grew up with a dog named Toy, each married a woman named Linda, who they divorced to remarry a woman named Betty. Both named their sons James Allen, drove the same Chevrolet, and they were finally reunited at the age of 39. Famous Marvel scenes where actors went totally off script. In this scene in Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord's backstory is being told as he does this.
Ravagers, led by Yondu Udonta.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how this machine worked.
Star-Lord putting up his middle finger wasn't in the script, but the director thought it suited Star-Lord's character, so he left it in. Marvel fan theories that actually came true. In this scene in Iron Man 2, a young kid in an Iron Man mask and gloves steps up and confronts this robot. That's when Tony Stark himself destroys the robot, thanks to Kid for his help, and flies away. This is where the theory starts. Since Tom Holland's Peter Parker was a huge Tony Stark fan, many Marvel fans theorized that the little kid from Iron Man 2 was actually Peter Parker. And it turns out that Tom Holland has actually confirmed this theory to be true. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 6. First, a few movie theaters in Switzerland have installed screens in the bathroom stalls so you don't miss even a second of your movie. Sadly, they don't appear to have sound, but they do have subtitles. Next, we all know how aggravating it is when you can't reach the last few Pringles at the bottom of the can. Well, with this machine that uses a simple pulley system and a bit of suction, it delivers the Pringles to mouth level completely hands-free. Next, in South Korea, these little jets spray salt water onto the roads for de-icing in the winter and cool down asphalt in the summer so it doesn't melt. They are completely automated, preserve the roads, and prevent injury from ice slippage. Next, all bathrooms should be like this one, where it shows a green light in front of available stalls and a red light in front of occupied stalls. people who gained real-life superpowers after an accident. Jason Padgett was a party animal who hated school and got terrible grades. But one day, two men savagely robbed and attacked Jason outside of a karaoke bar, leaving him with a severe concussion. The concussion caused him to become a mathematical genius and made him learn fractal geometry, which he had never been taught before. When Derek Amato was 39 years old, he hit his head after diving into a swimming pool and was diagnosed with a concussion and 35% hearing loss. After that, Derek began to see black and white keys in his head, and out of nowhere, he began to play the piano like an expert. Ben McMahon was in a car accident in 2015 and fell into a coma for a week. When he woke up, he could speak perfect Chinese even though he had only learned the basics as a child. Tony Ciceria was struck by lightning after making a call in a phone booth. Within a couple days, he was addicted to music, which he wasn't before. After trying the piano, he became a musical artist, composing his own music. Here's what would happen if we lost gravity for just 5 seconds. Since the world spins at 1,000 miles per hour, everything that isn't secured firmly to the ground would instantly go flying. There would be winds almost 6 times stronger than the ones produced by Hurricane Katrina. That means in just 5 seconds, you could be blown 1.4 miles in any direction. At the same time, the gases in the atmosphere would drift out into space. This would make us lose huge amounts of oxygen, and the sudden sharp drop in air pressure would instantly shatter everyone's inner ears. And since the planet itself is held together by gravity, without it, the Earth would start to expand. This would cause major earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, volcanic eruptions, and many more natural disasters. The Earth's crust would literally open up and swallow several major cities. And when gravity was restored, you would either get crushed by something or you'd hit the ground so hard you'd most likely die. Here is what all of the planets in our solar system sound like from space. First up is Mercury. Next is Venus. Next is Earth. Next is Mars. Next is Jupiter. Next is Saturn. Next is Uranus. And lastly is Neptune.